Welcome back, everyone. After the quick break, we'll be starting for the panel discussion 2 for the day, which is on changing the game using AI, ML, and IoT in insurance. We would have Mr. Harshal Desai, Assistant Editor, Elets Technomedia, as a moderator for the panel. We'll have Mr. Manu Lavanya, Director and Chief Operation Officer from Max Life Insurance Company Limited. Ms. Puneet Kaur Kohli, Chief Information Technology Officer, Universal Sompo General Insurance Company Limited. She's currently not here. She'll be back with us in just 5 minutes. We also have Mr. Bala Krishna Singhania, Chief Digital Officer, HDFC Life. Joining us, we have Rajendra Panchal, Associate Vice President IT, Future General Insurance Company Limited. We have Mr. Aniket Bhatt, Chief Strategy Officer, MapMy India, for the panel today. So I would request Mr. Harshal to please carry on with the panel. Over to you, Harshal.
Thank you so much, Hina. And on behalf of Elets and BFSI, I also once again welcome all the esteemed panelists. We are really thankful to you for you all taking time out for this panel discussion, which is on changing the game using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and Internet of Things in insurance sector. We all are aware that how all these components, AI, ML, and IoT, are changing the insurance sector. And we in India, in BFSI sector, have already on the path of making a very good use of all these technologies in different verticals in BFSI sector. So the game-changing influence of emerging technologies in the insurance industry and the initial hesitations around its implementation are now fading away. And what will be the new opportunities associated with the transition? That is something what we have to discuss. So I once again welcome all the esteemed panelists. And without further delay, I would go to Mr. Manu Lavanya and would like to ask my first question to Mr. Manu Lavanya. Mr. Manu Lavanya introduced is Director and Chief Operation Officer, Max Life Insurance Company Limited. Mr. Lavanya, AI is becoming more deeply integrated in insurance across the globe. So, how is Indian insurance sector embracing it and getting benefited? Your perspective on this?
Thank you, Mr. Ashur. Good morning to everyone, the esteemed panelists. Also, I hope all the loved ones, and our families, friends, everybody is safe and sound. These are very testing times indeed. I think that's a fantastic question, Harshal. And if I look at the role that AI/ML play within the insurance value chain in India today, I think there are certain pieces of that value chain where the impact has already started showing up. And let me quickly take you the entire value chain. When I look at selection, business selection, right? So the idea of machine learning extensively for discovering new cohorts of customer segmentation, for discovering mortality behaviors, for making sure the risk that is being chosen, persistency risk that is being chosen. A lot of machine learning is actually being driven already around the segmentation identification. Come on to the onboarding, that's where you start getting into the world of AI, where vision and analytics, or automated scanning of documents, OCRs, and then converting that into events and into APIs for really automating the onboarding process, right? Asking minimum information from the customers, people's ability to send the onboarding document just to a simple a photograph through their phones, right? And everything getting automated post. So there is a deeper and deeper, I would say, acceptance and of AI, especially vision-based AI on the onboarding journey as far as fraud prevention and as far as document onboarding is concerned. There is a significant amount of text analytics, text-based AI, context-based AI, that is around intent prediction in the servicing pieces of it, right? So that's where intent prediction, that's where conversational AI, especially on the customer service pieces of it, where bots are taking over significant components of servicing elements especially in the insurance sector. And finally, obviously, the moment of truth in our industry, which is the claims, the entire fraud prevention. That's where a mix of AI around vision, leveraging documents recognition, leveraging checks, a lot of machine learning around fraud prevention, which cohorts a claim is coming from, are there challenges in those cohorts, those geographies, and hence the ultimate decisions, right? So as you can see, there is a significant embedding of both machine learning and AI across the entire value chain. That progress has happened. It's happening. Some challenges do still exist in term, and we will talk about it for sure. But some challenges do exist in terms of data readiness in this whole idea of driving AI and ML. But there is no part of the supply chain that is untouched.
Great, thank you so much. You were kind of shared all the important elements related to machine learning and AI in insurance sector. Would like to go to Mr. Balakrishna Singhania, and I would like to ask you, Mr. Singhania, according to you, which are the areas insurance sector can make the most of artificial intelligence, and how do you rate the current adoption by this sector in present time?
Right. I hope you and everybody else is safe in these times. If you just look at it and compare it with our peers in, say, broader financial services sector, I would like to think that insurance sector has been slightly slower in adopting AI in general. Broader financial services always had, for example, credit risk models and propensity models and so on. We did not see so much of it in particular in life insurance at a historical level. But last 3 4 years, as more and more digitization happened, more and more data was available, and more than anything else, companies becoming more keen to invest in these technologies. A lot of that is happening in the marketplace today. For example, at HDFC Life, we have uh, models, and I would generally call them digital assets that can simulate the automated underwriting. And wherever we take the risk, we can figure out a way to say, irrespective of the insurer decision, I can do that decisioning process, which is far more scientific and statistically robust. Similarly, in terms of fraud preventions, as well as for products like annuity, where we can do life certificates, for example, to say, yes, this person who is talking to me is the same person whose ID was given to me. So I can check the photograph against Aadhaar database, for example, and also do what we call a liveliness check for annuity products to say, yes, it's not a photograph, but it's a real person that's in the camera. One big area that we see becoming big as we go forward is non-invasive medical. One of the things that the pandemic taught us was, uh, if I can do medical in the house of the customer, then the likelihood of customer accepting it is much far more high. So you now have AI ML models that can predict a number of things about your health by either looking at you or having your say finger in front of your camera, etc., etc. So there are multiple technologies that we are working on, and the whole idea is, while the some of these technologies are not ripe enough to put in a rollout, but these are the technologies that are helping me in the future. This is more from underwriting perspective, but same thing applies, or onboarding perspective, but same thing applies in terms of customer services. Again, we saw a huge surge in the email volume. Now we have AI ML models which can read the emails, so you have the natural language comprehension. They can understand what the customer is most likely talking about, and if the AI engine can answer the question, it does. Otherwise, it at least categorizes the department which most likely it refers to and cues it to the right department. So now these are small examples. You have similar other things in all parts of the value chain that you see more and more adoption happening. There are two, three things that are helping. One, more data means I have more intelligence to use. That's one. Similarly, what you see is customers becoming more and more digitally uh, aware, as well as using digital channels. So that's the second thing. And probably the most important is the firms becoming uh, far more keen to invest in these technologies, and some of it might be research, etc. But These are the kind of things which, at least at HDFC Life, we believe is giving us competitive advantage. What might be true is that the difference between us and say some of our nearest competition, the distance must is probably decreasing in terms of how far I can be. But by continually working on this, you basically hope that you are able to maintain that differentiation. And I like to think that these are the kind of stuff that will help any organization continue to differentiate in the marketplace, given how digitally connected we have become.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Balakrishna Singhania. And taking clue from what you said and what Mr. Manu Lavanya said, I'd like to ask Rajendra Panchalji. Uh, there are several areas where we are making the most of artificial intelligence and associated technologies. And as Balakrishna Singhania highlighted one point, a lot of data is being generated at every step, right? So how IT infrastructure and security comes into picture, and how strong should we focus on that area, so that we can protect the data also, and so that we can create a good infrastructure also where all these technologies can be go along with.
Yeah. Hi, Ashil. Good morning. So, as Manu rightly said, it is important to stay relevant and competitive, and therefore we have to implement all the emerging technologies. But during this journey, we deploy multiple technologies to gather data from customers at various touchpoints and various stages, and this data is processed also. This starts from receiving a customer inquiry to delivering the final product to the customer. During this journey, data is there with us, and all this is done with the sole intent of providing the better experience to customer. Of course, that in turn increases the revenue as well. But the data which is being generated was in quintillion bytes some time ago, and we don't know what is the amount of data which is being generated per unit of time now. Now, this huge data which is being generated, it poses multiple challenges like management of this huge data. Now, the compute power which is required to process this data, then this data, which is an important property of a customer, it has to be secured. Security is a major challenge we all know. Then, when this data is being processed, our employee who is working on this data and the customer who will be consuming the data, of course, what is consumed is an information, not data. So both employee and customer awareness is important. It has to be taken care of. Then
Yes.
finally, the regulatory requirements are there. Now we know that all the upcoming technologies, new technologies, are mostly available on cloud, and regulator has their own say on usage of cloud. So that also is a challenge. So in summary, it must be understood that any technology which is being deployed will come with its own challenges, and it will have its own time to evolve. Early
Okay.
adoption may bring in some risk like data security. So, and these threats will should be taken care of by any company who is processing the data. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Rajan Panchal. I'll of course come to you with my next question. And before we do that, Ankit Bhatt is with us. Ankit Bhatt is from MapMy India. And the first question that I'd like to ask Mr. Bhatt is that how MapMy India is playing its role in insurance sector. What are the expertise that you bring to the table for insurance sector as a whole?
Thanks, Harshal, and very interesting thoughts from everyone. I think this is the key, topic that's kind of forced all of us over over 2020 also, as as everyone became extremely digital. I think everyone is working towards using these digital tools and moving towards becoming a digital enterprise. So from a mapping perspective and this big data, AI, ML, that's a very core, core thing of what we do. We exist because of running these large data science and machine learning processes almost on every second basis. Um, so mapping essentially is an infrastructural play, right? Like a map is nothing but the representation of the world around you and what changes in it. And as we put our business on top of it, especially in the insurance sector, we've seen a lot of interesting use cases. Uh, you start seeing those patterns with how does your business relate with the world around you. I can take very simple use cases, and they're very interesting as they keep coming up. But even as you utilize a lot of the data that can be fetched from a phone, whether there is a person on the field, like a field workforce who's trying to kind of process a claim, and salesperson who's actually going and trying to sell, how do you utilize live location there to better allocate tasks and jobs to them basis what is in proximity. Because as we've seen this phenomena actually all across industries, whether it's banking, insurance, CPG, that as people have a lot of field force and you location enable that field force, you see a massive jump in productivity. Basically, essentially, what the problem is very simple, that you're trying to make sure that work is being done uh, to what is closest, right? And with that simple idea, which we have all experienced in our consumer lives, as you know, enterprise always follows the consumer tech market, as you see in the US, you see in India, that in the consumer market, we experienced Ola, Swiggy, all of these. And one of the fundamental concepts of it was that what is closest to you reaches you fastest, right? And we got used to it. And as we use that same concept in our business, you would see multiple productivity gains. And what happens in some use cases we've seen also is that once you utilize that all across, you'd see a very large change in productivity. There's gains in let's say throughput, therefore sales, and also things being done faster, therefore like more efficiency, so more profitability. So you've seen that uh, digital phenomena creep into this sector in a very big way. And field force is, I think, one of the use cases which we see in very interesting way. That very simple thing, right? A lead comes in, who do you allocate it to? Like, what is the logic? I'm sure there is a logic, but I'm as you infuse location into it, one is that okay, which is the branch, and another thing would be in real time. Do you want to allocate it to someone who's like right near the house, right? Uh, Maybe this sounds little different, but we've seen that such kind of location enablements cause a huge spike in consumer and customer happiness, because now all of us are consumers first, and we expect we expect everything now, today, as soon as possible. And even if there is some bit of anxiety, we kind of think that the service is not good, right? Like for example, someone, if you had a urban company, urban clap kind of service, and you see the person coming towards you, you feel a sense of calm. You feel like okay, he's going to reach in 20 minutes. But when you don't have that, and someone says, I'm going to come and collect a blood a sample for a COVID test at 6 p.m. At 5:30 itself, your BP is high. You're like, where is this person? So that is the normal phenomena we've all gotten used to, at least in urban, like large parts of urban India. And a core fundamental thing to get all this is location. So that was my first point, like, infusing location into all business processes, whether it's lead allocation, field person, field person duty, and also their reimbursements. There are so many things that you can fully automate and make it like a system that functions like, Ola, Uber, Swiggy's backend or front end in that way. Um, that's the first thing. Second is a lot of images that are being generated are very valuable, and with those images, you can actually I think a lot of these were already discussed, but you can actually digitize an entire process or a workflow. So as you capture that image, you capture location, capture more background information. You're able to, like, in some cases, even reduce claim processing times, right? Like if someone is able to send you an image of, let's say, in a motor insurance, is able to send you an actual image. You can firstly validate if the image is right, understand models of what are dents and how cars, generally look, and model it out. Take that back and kind of make some kind of guesstimate, which saves a lot of field or saves a lot of time, and therefore then process that faster. So you can also use it for many other cases. But as you utilize and augment this with obviously a human approach, I don't so you can completely eliminate a human approach. But as you augment it, you definitely increase all of these key performance indicators. So that's what we've seen in the mapping ecosystem. It's very interesting and exciting also. And also from one last thing is from the internal, uh, you know, actual science itself. Like that is the most powerful bit, where what is happening basis where your customer is and what kind of risk factors exist in those areas, like flood patterns, uh, any seismic areas. Like what are all these risks that exist, and how are these risks basis your own customers, that are there. But those are also, that kind of, I would say, analytical uh, behavior is like literally, I think, spiking basics 2020 2021, this whole digital shift. So that's our understanding
Right.
till now that we've seen.
Interesting, interesting. It was really very interesting, Mr. Ankit. But would like to go to Mr. Manu Lavanya again. Two things I'd like to ask you, sir. First, how relevant these points are for insurance sector that just Mr. Ankit Bhatt mentioned about the analytics and all. This is the first thing that I want to ask you. And second thing, as Mr. Balakrishna said, that we are probably a little slower in adopting these technologies in insurance sector. So how are insurance sector companies, strategize to in a way that more and more such technologies can be used in India? Manojit.
Thank you, Arshil. And let me address the first part of the question, which is how relevant are these technologies? Absolutely, I think it's a no-brainer. The question is which areas, right? If I look at even geofencing or geolocation, we do a lot of medical-based policy onboarding, right? And the question is, how do we figure out a person actually visited a medical center? Now, geolocation, we can drive a great solution to ensure that the life assured was actually within the premises of the medical center at that time and place when he or she said that the medical is executed, right. It prevents a lot of impersonation from, or it prevents a lot of that the fraud that we see for either documents being being defrauded and so on and so forth, right? So, is there an application? I just gave you one example. There are multiple examples. Even verification, pre-onboarding verification, right? Geotagging, knowing where the customers are, uh, matching it with what they have given as documentation. Uh, all these are extremely relevant in terms of the insurance process. So fraud prevention is one big area where many of the technologies that Mr. Ankit talked about, they're actually being leveraged today. There is a second big area of leverage, which is around pure analytics, the intelligence, right? And I said it's getting leveraged across the entire value chain. But more and more, what is happening is as we are driving the whole idea of self-service, as we are driving the idea of omnichannel experience, how do I predict the intent of my customers before they explicitly say that to me, right? And so a lot of analytics, a lot of those tool sets are being applied extensively, right, today out there. And then there is a big component. Even if you look at one is constituent is the customers, but there's also a big internal constituency with, let's say, with distributors or with agency partners, with employees. There is a lot of application around, for example, things like geofencing, even for attendance management, even for figuring out what is the office presence. The work from home context today is changing what we call as place of work, right? And how do you use geofencing for people to just walk into the office and the attendance is already marked, right? Or I don't know to have a count of quote unquote variable effort deployed at various places. So there is a very active set of use cases that are being used in the industry. Let me come up with the second part, right, which is the challenge, right, and really the biggest limitation that I see where the promise of these tools does not meet its full potential is data. See, while there was a lot of excitement around AI ML, very much for the last 5 6 years. Um, there's a big challenge around: is my data even ready to be analyzed upon? Because the data structures are legacy. Okay, nobody built a data structure 10 years ago, an enterprise EDW 10 years ago, thinking that I'm going to do analytics on it 10 years later, right? So the one big challenge is, how do I deal with lack of data? Or data is there, but it is not in a form and shape. It's not an infrastructure that is scalable. It is not at a place that it can be analyzed very easily. That's problem number one. Problem number two, the boundary of the enterprise as far as data flow is concerned. Because analytics, as we see, becomes more and more complete if you have both internal and external sources of data coming in seamlessly and creating the entire 360 view of an individual or a customer, both from inter-enterprise data and extra-enterprise data, right? Now that's where security comes in. As a country, I don't think we are still ready for massive sharing of data across industries, across players, especially in a regulated world like insurance, right? And so that's a second challenge. And the third challenge is, how do you take care of, where do you draw the boundary? What is the enterprise, right? And what sort of data is required for me to build a 360-degree view? It can be split across channel partners, it can be split across competition, it can be split across regulators, it can be split across my internal enterprise systems. There is this relentless effort going in today to expand the boundary of the virtual enterprise if you define it from a data flow perspective, right? That is a big challenge that we see today, that while there is no dearth of tools as far as AI and ML is concerned, but it is the readiness of data in its entirety that today is the limiting factor in terms of realizing the full potential and the promise of AI and ML.
Thank you so much, Manuji. Interesting point you have shared. And before I go to the next speaker, would like to welcome Ms. Punit Kaur Kohli. She has joined us. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. She is Chief Information and Technology Officer, Universal Sompo General Insurance Company Limited. Welcome to this panel discussion, ma'am. And
Thank you.
I will come to you after one question from Mr. Balakrishna Singhania. Mr. Balakrishna Singhania, you just heard what Manuji said. Would like to understand from you what are your input on these comments, and what is the potential for MI in insurance value chain that you see, uh, which we can probably work at a more speed in near future. Balakrishna ji.
Yeah, so I agree broadly that AI/ML is a tool set, if you want to think of it, or it is a technology, and it predominantly depends on the data to make it work. And organizations which collected data 2 years back, 3 years back, thinking, I don't know the use case, but let me collect the data, are in a better position than those who did not. And similarly, those who collect the data in a meaningful manner and store it in a meaningful manner, they will get their set of benefits in the months and years to come. Today, I like to think that a lot of companies collect the data but don't know what to do with it. And it basically means that you are storing them in a manner that is not conducive for any form of analysis going forward, or any form of algorithms in any manner. So I'll give you a small example. If I want to do a facial recognition from a customer perspective, so when he comes into the branch and says, "Hey, I am Balkrishna," rather than having to show an ID, I can do a facial recognition today. But if the photograph that you had was my family photograph, which also had my spouse and my children also in the photograph, historically we might be okay with that. But if I want to use facial recognition technology, one, I still want it to be of a high resolution, or at least good enough resolution. But I don't want other people, otherwise my algorithm will fail essentially, or will at least get confused that there are multiple pictures and people, and I don't know who I am looking for. So the simple thing that a picture should be like a passport size photograph or something like that, which is so simple. Today, you can just do a selfie in a second and get that picture. Now, something as simple as that, we may not have imagined, say, 3 years back, as something important for a facial recognition software to actually work. Now, that is the kind of stuff that happens everywhere we do, no matter what we do. And to that extent, all the algorithms work on data, and there is a novelty of using the right type of data for the right type of use case. Um, there are hindrances to those. One, there are technology hindrances, data hindrances, and also there are mindset hindrances or the change management hindrances. So if somebody is used to do business in a particular fashion, and if broadly speaking they are successful, while they could technically be more successes there, but if you are talking to someone who is essentially successful in some way, and you say, hey, I want you to do business in slightly different way, which is technology enabled, they may or may not adopt the technology that you're talking to them. And those are change management issues that come along with everything else that's part of the technology stack, if you want to think of it in that way, which includes data, that includes algorithms, that include everything else. And to me, that's the critical part. If I want to be a leader in my team or in my company for all of this, then it's important for me to also work around the change management to ensure the adoptions, and also keep preparing for the future in terms of what technology we are working on. So while I don't want to get into the details, but there are at least 5 to 7 technology area that we are working, and we don't expect any of them to be actually operational in next 2 years in terms of market readiness. While we may be ready, but our customers and our ecosystem will not be ready. We know that for sure. So, but we are working on it, we are investing on it, and we believe that these in the coming months and years will be useful to us. So, a small example: we were working on NLP bots 2 3 years back, and today everyone has WhatsApp bots and all of that. And I would like to think ours is far superior than most competition, if not everybody. And a lot of it, I would just give credit to the fact that we were working on it before this became a common marketplace. And that's the point here. When you work on 10 technology, only 3 of them will go to the market adoption. But you need to work on 10 to figure out what those 3 technology tomorrow will be. And in that sense, we need to do the trade off between our current priorities and our future priorities. Usually, sometimes future priorities do take a backseat, but AI algorithms, etc., do not get developed in a day. Those capabilities do take their own time. The use case development does take their own time, and so on. So we have to look at it from the entire ecosystem perspective. If is the comment I would add.
Thank you, Mr. Singhania, for this. And you said sometimes future priorities take the back seat. That's of course a different point altogether to discuss upon. We'll do that. Would like to go to uh, Srimati Punit Kaur Kohli, ma'am. Would like to ask you. Uh, Thank you so much for joining. And expert estimates that there will be, up to 1 trillion connected devices by 2025. So we were discussing about the data privacy. What role will AI play in handling data created due to this sink of insurance? That's something which we would like to seek your opinion on.
Thank you so much, Arshal, and good afternoon to all my co-panelists and the viewers. Yes, I say that this is about a connected world. Emerging technology is playing very big role today, especially with regard to artificial intelligence or bots replacing many manual interventions. And you see that, like, even your call dialing engagement with your customers, the journeys are getting defined on the WhatsApp. End-to-end journeys of customers are all getting defined on WhatsApp, whether it is through bots. It's much more that even a human intervention can start getting engaged, but the bot gets engaged much faster with it, and reaping its benefits. So the connected devices, I would suggest that something which this pandemic has taught us is the new normalcy. The historical data, if we say that we, as a part of the insurance benchmarking in terms of any things, when we talk about the legacy patterns of like claim settlement, or in terms of, if you talk about predictive analysis based on which, or in terms of any financial services, being in the lending space or the insurance space, if you see that the historical pattern will give us some kind of benefit, I think so the entire new normalcy is being changed. The patterns are very new. People have got much more engagement of working from home. People are working from anywhere. Claim are all time high in terms of the health, if I talk about, because of this pandemic situation. Everybody, there's a mandatory health insurance, where people say that because of corona and COVID-19 situation, people are at bound to take health insurance as a part of their as a daily necessity. People used to consider them as luxury as a part of insurance, but now it has become as a no more a luxury, become as a part and parcel of life, irrespective whether family needs it or it does not need it. But what people think that they want to provision, at least they're a part of monthly budgets or a kind of budgets that they work out today. Every household is talking about a special health insurance package with regard to COVID, or any other new things which might be the kind of predictive analysis or anything is coming from the west. One is this area. Second area is in terms of when there is so high surge of claims in terms of settlements and all. I think so there is a need of the hour that emerging technologies is beyond much where a manual intervention will take place. It's more of an end-to-end automation, because every settlement of claim, every happy employee or every happy customer definitely might have again and again filing of this claim, maybe because of not only one member of his family. It could be the same one common health claim or a health policy which would have taken, could have four or five claim in in one family only. So that means when the company from which, or from which institute that health insurance has been claimed, definitely it deals with a family, and that family has five members, means five different claim settlement. So that means, how, where are we going? It's everyday kind of an exploring that we are doing. As we are growing, we are coming to know that an on demand kind of a surge which is coming. How are we going to get geared up for this? So technology is playing a very big role in terms of certain new technologies, like blockchain in claim settlement is really a need of the hour. Yes, whether it is time and tested or not, somebody will have to take a call in terms of who is the first, and the other ones can be replicating the model. It's not necessary that today, because the world is moving with these new age technologies, whether it be about IoT, artificial intelligence, and all. We should note what is our ecosystem. Are we really ready for it? If not artificial intelligence, but a basic level of, you can say, predictive analysis can start from a small algorithm which will depend on the historical patterns, which a company or an SME who is within the part of the organization would not be knowing more than. Nobody coming from outsider will define those algorithms for you. You should be knowing what your customer is demanding. You should know what has been your aging analysis on different processes, at least taking 3 or the 5 years kind of a backlog. Basis that, you work out on your algorithm, take a business call, take a tech call, amalgamation of the two, and you can build up your algorithm in your artificial intelligence and start putting on your the analytics in place. And that can be a forecast basis which a business can take very effective decisions. That is one area, which is
Right.
a sort of a predictive analysis today. And definitely the need of the hour is integration of all these new age technologies like robotics, artificial intelligence, your augmented reality, or you talk about live video streaming in terms of claims, because everything is working from home kind of thing. People want to use surveyors to do settlement of the motor claims. People want to use the health claims. So an analogy of a 360-degree, it is not about any more about people process technology. It's now a substitution of process technology and data,
Hmm.
which works hand in hand. and then basis that the business decisions are taken now.
Right. So how have been your experience in this pandemic, particularly? What kind of growth that you have seen while onboarding the customers? What are the technologies probably you used at your organization? If you can share some input on that,
So
both
definitely a
onboarding also and while
definitely
claim settlement also.
fine. Definitely, a digital first and a mobile first approach is the real need of the hour. It's not about the usability. I am like into 8 months only into the system now, very recently. But what we really need is that we are having some engagement through omni-channel, basically omni-channel platforms where you have a convergence of voice, video, and data bots, which will talk about faster going to the market, turnaround time to be faster. And I am also basically integrating in terms of an internal operation perspective. I started using bots in those kind of thing. I'm also you're working on especially the visualization tool, building up scorecards and building up the dashboards, which could give the business some kind of a static need in terms of taking their business decisions. In terms of the new claims filing, in terms of the new product filings, all these things is where we are doing an end-to-end automation. It is not about automation; it is also about customization also of the new products. So end-to-end, from onboarding till claim settlement, is something about the digital user journeys, is something which we are defining and we are getting it developed right now.
Right. Thank you so much. Rajan Panchalji would like to understand what are the challenges associated with the deployment of emerging technologies that you see, sir. You're on mute, sir. You're mute here. Yes.
Am I there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As I stated earlier, one of the biggest challenges the deployment of the technologies uh, because of its compute requirement. Of course, parallel computing is available on cloud, but again, regulators they have their say on the cloud utilization. So that is one challenge. The second one, and the major one is the security. Managing the security of the information, which is the data which is being gathered and being processed. And third is the awareness on processing of the data and importance of the data amongst the employees and the end users. These are the
Right.
major challenges.
Right. 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 Thank you. And how you are coordinating with the other tech team within Future generally to ensure that these challenges are addressed properly? What are the mechanisms that
Okay,
you
so
usually follow?
right, so main approach is bringing the awareness on the data security. So everything revolves around the data security of the data which is being processed. So we conduct regular trainings and awareness session on the security of data and the right utilization of the technology amongst the users as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, Manuji, uh, your organization is also kind of it's just not just limited to urban areas and metropolitan cities, but uh, it's there across the country, right? And in every part of the country, Max Life Insurance Company services are available. Now, the thing that I want to understand how these newer and emerging technologies are helping you to connect with people in remote areas also. Usually, we have seen that people who are living in urban cities like metropolitan cities, they are more, willing to adopt, go for insurance and all. And the trend, if I'm not wrong, in rural areas, people do not usually prefer, to have insurance, health insurance, and life insurance, and wo- maximum they go for is some traditional policy plans and all. So how these technologies are helping you to connect with these people? And one more thing, important thing is that when you use this technology, so this is not just the organization which has the onus on it, but then the customer also need to be friendly with while it comes to use this technology. So how do you see all these factors? Please, over to you.
Great question. Great question, Harshal. And I think you've hit the nail on the head as far as the relevance and the expansion of digital tools in, let's say, semi-urban to rural India, right? Now, obviously, we know that there's a very natural bias. There is, if you see that this customer segment of what I call as the digital netizens, it is still very much urban today. But here is where, there are two themes. One is the theme of simplification. See, if you see the mobile adoption in rural India, it actually was far, far quicker and far more seamless because it was simple to use, right? Now, so one of the dimensions around digital interventions in rural, first, it needs to be simple. The moment you talk about complex workflows, you talk about a very high dependence on even smartphones, because half the people out there have feature phones. They won't even have smartphones, right? So tools like SMSs, tools like WhatsApp, tools like simple text interaction become very, very important. So one is simplification. The second challenge, the second dimension is how vernacular we are. See, because there is a very natural bias still for primary languages like English and Hindi, for example. But a lot of penetration in the rural segments is also deeply dependent on the vernacular content, right? So that's the second dimension, which where we are working extensively to figure out how do we drive that penetration in the rural segment. Third, there's more of a understanding the consumer. Right? I'll give a live example that we use, for example, video-based verification for onboarding journeys to make sure that we can address onboarding risk and fraud prevention. When you go to a rural area, people are not comfortable coming on a video. They're not comfortable. They would rather give in a physical document. They would rather give in a physical, proof of KYC more than come on a video, right? So what that has led to is that has led us to really morph and transform our journeys so that we give a very, very wide variety of options to our semi-urban and rural consumers to still complete the journey in the choice of channel that they want to come in. It's never a clean adoption. Right? So one is the breadth of channels available for them to get onboarded, simplicity, vernacular, and finally, see, the more we drive the intent on the last mile mobile. So mobile has become a big, big driver because in our rural segments, mobile computing reached first than desktop computing. Right? In fact, last mile internet, physical line is yet to reach almost 70 to 80% of rural India. Right? But mobile has, right? And the cost of data has fallen down drastically. And hence, whatever we can deliver through what I call as native or React native designs, responsive designs, simpler, fewer clicks, reduce customer loads for that segment, especially, the better the adoption. It's a journey, very frankly. There is still a lot of work to be done in that area, purely from a technology perspective. But these are the three, four dimensions that I believe become very, very important as you start thinking about deployment of digital initiatives in semi-urban and rural India.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Manuji. Balakrishna ji, how has been your experience when interacting with customers using these technologies, and how do you see their behavior is and their adoption also is crucial, for the success of these technologies? And you first, I would like to answer this, and then I'll put my next question to you,
Sure.
Balakrishna.
So it's very important for any organization to uh, do some sort of an omni-channel, digital digital level whenever you are doing what you are doing. So, for example, if I plan my say a customer journey for the minimum common denominator, then my urban customers are not going to be happy because they are used to something else, and vice versa. So it is very important to have multi channel, multi kind of an environment that we can provide to our customers at the level through the means that they want. So, for example, customer services. Now you can do customer services today. Most of it you can do today in our WhatsApp bot. So you want to change an address, it will tell you here is a KYC form. You do this, upload it via WhatsApp, and that. So somebody would be comfortable enough. So personally, for example, I would like to do that. I can do it at my home, and I'm happy doing it. But there are people who will say, "Oh my God, I don't know how to scan it. I don't have probably a phone camera, etc., etc." That person is more comfortable visiting the branch, and then there is everything that comes in between those things. So it's important to give the spectrum of choice while the push towards digitization is happening. A lot of it through indirect impact of pandemic, but even otherwise, as more people use phones, smartphones, consume data, all of this is happening. We, for example, give someone who visit the branch an option to say, "Hey, by the way, I also need this document, and if you don't have it now, here is a link through which you can upload it tomorrow at from your home. You don't have to revisit the branch. It makes my branch more efficient. It makes customer more convenient." And that's an option given, even though I'm nudging the customer to use more digital channels. So that's the thing. I cannot hamper my customer experience. I still have to retain the customer. I can't force the digital digital consumption from my customer, but I can nudge it. And when I do it in a positive manner and give the customer the right tools, then that happens in a far more natural fashion. And that's the broad approach that we are doing. And the whole idea is that customers are using it, but let them use it at the speed that they are ready for. And different customer segments have drastically different preferences when it comes to digital. So
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Balakrishna. Next thing, what I wanted to ask you is that, which we should discuss also, interacting power of insurance chatbots. How successful these chatbots are. Probably we can also include WhatsApp services, the automated WhatsApp services, and what is the future of these chatbots and WhatsApp services? Balakrishna.
right, sure. So if you think I will talk about HDFC journey. So we
Yeah.
launched these bots about our WhatsApp channel and WhatsApp bots about year and a half back. Before that, it was more used for an outbound channel. So if I need to send a message, I will send it predominantly and I only receive queries back. But now we have bots, etc., with an option to say, I want to talk to a person, so I am still giving the personal touch to my bots wherever the customer is ready to. And what we have done over a period of time is see more and more adoption. And therefore, what we are also doing is pretty much all of my 100% customer services and a number of customer onboarding journeys are also available on WhatsApp. And the thing where we find most critical is there are certain things which customers were not engaging with us as often. So, for example, on the unique policies, you have fund value, which customer almost like a mutual fund kind of a thing want to understand the fund value. Right? If someone who is an active managing the unit, they want to know fund value more often than lot of others. Earlier, it used to take a customer service call, etc., etc. What is my fund value? I'm trying to decide whether I want to surrender now or 1 week later or 1 month later. Now that's available and it's convenient to the customer, and for us, it keeps the engagement. A lot of other aspects. I gave example of customer uh, address, for example. A lot of other things, including claims, etc., can be now originated through WhatsApp. We uh, have also launched successfully uh, journeys on Google Assistant and Alexa. Some of those we believe will become future in some sense. The adoption will probably not come through insurance first, but as consumer, when you start to call your Alexa and say, "Hey Alexa, where is my Swiggy order?" or "Hey Alexa, can you reorder bread from that vendor?" Some of that thing will is something that will probably happen to us next year or so. And suddenly you want to see customer service that says, "Hey, when is my premium due?" Alexa will answer that. So we already have some of those things in production, and you can try it at your home today. So it's not a generic information; it's after authentication about your own thing. So a lot of those voice bots on top of the regular text bots, I believe, are something that we should see as the next generation to the text bots. Text is something that is becoming more and more intelligent. So while I would think that most organizations do have text bots, but all text bots are not equal. Some are far more intelligent. So you could ask them policy specific things. You could ask them, I want to do X rather than general information like what's a sum assured be kind of queries that they can answer. So the power is one, to make those bots intelligent, and second, to look for alternate bots. Like wherever possible, I personally use what I call hands-free mode. So I want to speak, and it makes me while I'm walking to wherever I can do some of those things, or I'm holding my phone and doing the voice, for example. Now, a lot of it I do it because I also want to understand how different technology are being adopted elsewhere. But the part of it is I find it extremely convenient once I got used to it. And the thing is, the customer will keep changing preferences. The idea is eventually develop all this technology in a way that customers are most uh, able to do it, and do it in a way that doesn't take. We optimize the development. So, for example, we have at least 6 to 7 different channels through bots, but they use the common NLP engine. So it has two benefits. One, from my perspective, the development time is minimized, but from a customer perspective, it means the experience is similar across different channels, and that's a win-win for both the customer perspective as well as from my development and IT cost perspective, because I'm essentially using the same modules. The core NLP module is same across different bots and different properties that I have, be it website bots, Twitter bots, Facebook bots, and so on. So that's the key. If I develop models in a way that becomes very much embedded, then I can't make these modular choices on my systems. And those are the kind of things that I like to think that organizations have to optimize. And I like to also think while we do some simple solutions, they are also the best for the customers.
Right. Thank you so much, Balakrishna ji. Would like to go to now Puneet Kaur Kohli, ma'am, and would like to ask, uh, pricing and customization of products is very significant. Nowadays, we see a lot of plans with different options available, and there is still, there are options to change several things according to customers' preferences also. Now, how do you see I mean, there is a role of artificial intelligence, but to what extent we have actually been able to use that artificial intelligence in when it comes to pricing and customization of products?
Can you be a bit more, specific to
So,
that? Like some
do
more.
you think that do you think that when it comes to customization of insurance products and also behavioral policy pricing and the customization and the pricing, we understand that artificial intelligence has a role to play in these elements also, but have we been able to do that? Have we been able to use the artificial intelligence machine learning in customizing the policy the insurance products?
No, we have not started yet on that particular journey, but definitely there are certain processes where we are uh, doing certain pilots in terms of understanding that if we go with such kind of rule engines defined into the system, and with what kind of output we'll be getting, it is based on certain results, based on the farm market feedbacks made about the competitors landscape, all that stuff. What exactly, once these kind of products which are really a need of the hour gets customized, once they get customized and then they get filed, and once the approval comes from the regulatory authority, are we good to launch those products or not? So those particular rule engines, certain analysis is being done But when I say that real artificial intelligence, if we have started using it, no, we have not started using it as of now. I think so. We still have to yet get much more matured in terms of using the real crux of artificial intelligence, machine learning to go into the nitty gritties. That what can be the benefit or the the keeping the market centricity or a customer centricity into view, their convenience into the view. If any kind of such structural products can be launched into market, I think
Right.
so. We really have to get geared up on that as of now.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. That's what I wanted to understand. And Ankit ji, last but not the least question to you. You must have been interacting with the all the tech heads at different insurance sectors. So, how have you seen their willingness to adopt your technologies that MapMy India has to offer to insurance sector?
I think in general, because of COVID and because of this whole digital push, I think the response has been very strong. I think what we build or what generally the cloud offers or any other AIML even services are pretty much open and out there. And I think everyone is understands the concept of APIs and simple get post requests and all of that. I think that every team, it's very heartening to see that every technology team within most companies have a set of people who deeply understand these capabilities. So and it's not very complex to kind of then build those bridges, right? It's not uh, and I think some of the times we've seen that okay, it has to be where companies like us deeply invest to help developers also, which we do, because it's not easy to get I mean, it's easy to integrate, but to fine tune it takes time to fine tune and to get exactly the output that you expect. It does take time. It maybe takes some additional things you build on top of that are not standard also. So I think that it's both sides. It's one is from the customers. I think they're pretty, as the customer is also a consumer. Everyone is willing to adopt, and they have teams that understand this, and everything is also becoming platformized. So there are so many no code initiatives. There is so much out there that is making it easier and more object driven, more modular for everyone to adopt this. So I don't think so that is an issue. And on companies like us, or I think there are many companies like us that are trying to make it more simpler. Simpler in the sense that the GUI, the GUI, the tools are also being made very plug and play, very simple, drag and drop, even in a containerized, even in a safe, secure environment. So I think that is becoming progressively easier. And obviously, our objective as companies is also to make these complex tools as easy for business and technology users. So that's also happening. Like we have what we try to do is make a simple platform where you can just plug in, let's say, in a secure environment, let's say even on your premise, just plug in customer records, uh, but use it geospatially. So very simple tool, very simple. I mean, if I were to say it's like a Tableau for maps, right? You just plug in, you switch on the layers, and you'll be able to see what what customers are where and what kind of risk you see. So simple tools are also something that we aspire to build and continue to build. And I think customers are getting more and more tech savvy. So I think it's overall a very healthy ecosystem right now, and it's just I think it's a very small window to see everything can be transformed very soon. And I think in even in major in the US and other economies, you'll see that uh, big companies like Google are starting to think about how to get into financial services in a deeper way. So that shows what is to come in the next 10, 20 years, 15 years, where crunching information and making sure the organization is agile to serve customers is kind of the need of the hour. So,
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ankit Bhatt and all the panelists. We are making the use of, we understand we are making the use of all these technologies, and Indian BFSI sector is, I mean, as an editor, we get a chance to interact with several experts like you, and we cover their interviews for our magazine. So we learned one thing, that Indian BFSI sector is far ahead when it comes to use these technologies, and all credit goes to tech head like you, who are there at different institutions, and leading it all from the front. But still, as Balakrishna sir has also highlighted, probably in some areas the growth is slower, and we still need to continue exploring how best we can use these technologies, and customers behavior will also come into picture. As our customer get more and more tech savvy, these technologies will automatically increase, their usage will increase. So thank you so much for your inputs and participating in this panel discussion. We will of course document this also after the conference is over, and we'll circulate it with everyone, so that all people can understand what are the things that we still need to work upon, and what are the challenges that we are facing. So with this, I hand over this to Hina Shukla.
Thank you, Herschel. I think you have very well concluded like how the insurance industry is now adapting the technologies and changing the overall game across the website industry, right? So, thank you so much for all the panelists for your presence, Mr. Aniket Bhatt. Thanks for your presence. I think MapMy India is playing a very vital role in bringing up the technology advancement in the insurance industry. I would also like to thank Mr. Balakrishna Singhania. Thank you for your presence, sir. Ms. Puneet Kumar Kohli, thank you so much for your presence. It always enlighten you, always enlighten us with so much insightful thoughts. I think our real audience has have really enjoyed this. So thank you, Mr. Manu Lavanya, and thanks, Mr. Rajendra Panchal, for being a wonderful, running the sessions. Thank you, Herschel, for moderating it so well.
Yeah, thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, thank you so much. So with this, we'll move on to the next presentation for the day, which is delivered by Mr. Subrajit Mukhopadhyay on digital journey of life insurance. We'll be getting back in just 5 minutes. Stay tuned to us.